Watching CN2 News, two Chester County principals wanted to make a difference during the pandemic. They started Create and Educate LLC to help educators and parents during some tough times. They're focusing on literacy and leadership. CN2's REAL Jackson has more on how they're helping the community.
Create and Educate, we are a consulting firm that works with educators as well as entrepreneurs. So with the side where we're working with educators, we offer professional development on literacy as well as implicit bias. We work with leaders and leadership teams to help improve schools.
They've been surviving pandemic education by offering tips for school leaders, teachers, and parents.
We really want to see kids through the trajectory, graduating from high school, ready to go to college or to start a career or to go into the military.
Create and Educate has multiple community partners in the area that read books to children weekly, discuss literature, and express their support for the education system. Recently, the owners were featured for Amazon's #1 best-selling book entitled Women Who Lead in Education.
And so we are super, super excited because we're amongst a family of women leaders who are absolutely extraordinary. So it's an honor to have been asked to participate. And then even more of an honor now that the book has gone on sale and it became a #1 bestseller. So you don't have to be a school leader to have leadership qualities.
Collectively, both Tammy Taylor, principal of Great Falls Elementary, and Dr. Sheka Houston, principal of Chester Middle School, have 40 years of service in education. They have learned the need in their community, and they plan to
serve all children in all communities. And one of the things that we enlighten people about in our professional development with literacy is that sometimes it's hard for children to connect to text because they don't see themselves in text. Providing that culturally relevant literature for students, and that's not just African American students, that's all students. Every student at every school should be able to see themselves in a book, in a text, to be able to connect with it.
Surviving pandemic education together in Chester, REAL Jackson, CN2 News.
Again, their goal is to help connect educators, parents, community members, and authors each week to help better navigate the pandemic. To learn more about Create and Educate LLC, simply follow them on Facebook or at their website at
Great Saturday, everyone. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Sheka. Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday.
Yes, happy Saturday and happy New Year again. Welcome to the REAL Academy, the home of Create and Educate's 5 super strengths to resilience. Tammy and I used our framework with the REAL acronym to help improve both of our schools' 2 and 3 report card grade levels in 1 year when we found ourselves in the throes of state-sanctioned school improvement. We are still every day waiting for the new list to come out that the date just seems to keep changing about when that's coming out. But we are waiting to hear what the new results are. But we are excited that our staffs bought into our shared vision and our students as well, and they put in the work to turn our schools around. So the point of us doing this every Saturday is to make sure that we're sharing and paying it forward with those tips, because when we found ourselves in that status, people like Principal Hurt, Principal Kafele are people that we reached out to, Dr. Sharon, for help. And those were people that were outside of not just our district, but outside our state. So platforms like these are so important to provide support for leaders and teachers so that we can make sure we're changing the lives of students everywhere.
And that network is so important because you get access to some incredible people. As Sheka said, we could not have done the work without what Principal Hurt, and shout out to Principal Sean Hurt, who did an absolutely incredible job this morning. He absolutely was wonderful, Melissa. Thank you, Principal Hurt, for giving us those tips for how successful teachers interact within their schools. You are spot on, and we look forward to part 3. We may be able to join you in person because we will be at SCASP next week as well. So looking forward to hearing those remaining ideals for what you have found in successful teachers. So important. And I loved the levity. You have to have levity in learning so that kids are engaged in what they're doing and having a good time while they're doing it. Yes, Sean Hurt be killing it. Love it. Thank you, Principal Laws. But we are so excited to have you guys. And as I was saying, we could not have done the work without what Principal Hurt was pouring into us. Dr. Sharon encouraging and saying, "Oh yeah, you guys got this. You can stay the course." And we've told the story many times, but also just having that opportunity to sit at the feet of Principal Kafele and hear what it means to hear him say in person, "Is your school a better school because you're the leader?" You know, you have to embolden within yourself that, yeah, it's going to be. If it wasn't, and that's what we were like, you know, we didn't even know how to answer the question. Like, I hope it is. But we want to leave whenever that question's asked, emphatically saying it's absolutely a better space because I'm here. So like Sheka said, opportunities to engage with people from all aspects of life from across the country, across the world. These platforms allow for us to be able to do those kinds of things.
And we have been calling ourselves the Fantastic Four, but I kind of like Principal Nesbitt's her dream team Saturday PD name. We'll have to talk about that. But we're going to get into the topic so that we don't run out of time. Recently, and it's not really just recently, for some time, the theme in education amongst teachers is that they are exhausted and that, you know, there's just too many requirements, too many things being thrown at them. And not just teachers, this is coming from leaders. People are looking at things differently. Things have shifted. I just spoke with someone who is in the college arena. They talked about how 1.9 students that were previously enrolled in colleges, now that enrollment number is down about a million or more students. So things are shifting, people's aspirations are changing. And so when the economy changes, when things shift, we also have to shift as the preparers for every career that there actually is that exists. So one of our colleagues, Pete Stone, he's a creator. So he has his own platform called Today in the Woods, which he has actually interviewed me before. He's a high school teacher. He created a video that kind of just displays what that exhaustion looks like and what people are frustrated with. And some people might look at it negatively and say, well, why would they show that? That's so showing negative things. But these are the real conversations that we actually need to be having in education. These are the real things that people need to know, so we'll know how to shift, how to change, and how to move forward. And what Tammy and I are talking about today is 10 ways to ignite teachers' fires. So after that, we're going to get into what we have prepared. So let me share.
Yeah. And Sheka, please help us to make sure you receive this in the spirit that Pete created it, because he isn't creating this to be negative. He's creating this as the reality of how fires are going out.
Exactly.
Are you ready to bubble in some ABCD? That's what we all came here for, right? Some standardized tests. And don't worry, we're done with that. We got some surveys. Let's get it! SAT, ACT, EOC, MAP, RQW, work, CRA, BOC, CFA, NWEA, SC Pass, CDA, SC Rating, KRA. Terranova High said Land NYS Cast Star Explore Odyssey OFL GDAAD Apex GED Exapath IXL Study Island Lucy Calkins. We start the fire. We've been learning, the world is turning, but we calm down the fire. We move and play, and in more testing days, ready to succeed. SOLOs, studies, standards, verbs written on the board. DPS reports, overload of paperwork. SOLOs, PD, extra duties as assigned. Verbiage articulation, more anxiety, depression, extra large class size, making kids all standardized. Data for politicians, never in the classroom. Complicated lesson plans just for the admins. We didn't start a fire. You've been learning since the world is turning, but we try to see fire. Ignoring what they say, and in more testing days. Political manipulators, distressing educators, buzzwords, bomb threats, lockdowns, blocked internet, fear tactics, data shame, description game, forced compliance, just keep quiet. Here's another survey. Underfunding public ed, sending money instead over to private schools, playing by different rules. Book and false scares of CRT indoctrination. Love more, test less, use your imagination. Start a fire. You've been learning, the world is burning, but we practice learning fire. Removing pain and testing day. We didn't start the fire. Human been learning, the world is burning, but we crushed his learning fire. Keep removing pain.
So again, he was just bringing light to some things that are putting out some of the leaders' fires, teachers' fires, and children's fires. And this morning, we're going to talk about how we can actually ignite those fires instead of putting them out as it relates to our REAL acronym. And we're going to start with respect, which is that first R, the R that's in our acronym. And really just learning how to respect the fact that teachers are the experts. A lot of times things are pushed down from legislators who, for some reason, feel like they start conversations or they start legislation and start discussions when really the people who should be starting these discussions are educators. Sometimes we're invited to the table after the fact, but we need to be the ones that are starting those conversations and leading what needs to happen in education, not vice versa.
And in keeping it, just really cultivating that respect, making sure that teachers know that we understand and respect them as the leaders of their classrooms, knowing that they can only do so much, and just making sure they understand that we're okay with keeping the main thing, and knowing that you cannot get everything in there. So whenever possible, taking anything off their plates that's not necessary. There are things that the state requires, there are things that the district requires. So we know that there are things that are required, but anything that is not required, taking the time to just get that stuff, remove it so that teachers have time to keep the main thing.
Exactly. And also, in that same vein, Tammy, you talked about some of those. There are some state and district things that we can't get around. They're mandates, they're requirements. So when we know that those things exist as leaders, we have to build out the time. We have to make sure and make the space that our teachers have the time to address those things and not adding extra unnecessary meetings to their plates or having meetings that could have been a memo or email when they really need that time to work. So all of that falls under that respect factor.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that's important when we're looking at the way Sheka is saying we need to make sure that we make that space available to them. We have to think outside the box and be creative with the time that we have during the school day and try to create the kind of schedule that allows for some job embedded PD, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but just take away any of the extraneous. And moving on to the E, which is excellence in the acronym, we want to make sure that we cultivate a mindset of excellence by allowing teachers to constantly reconnect with their why. We are here for kids. That's what we're here to do. And allowing them the space to be able to make those connections, build those relationships. Town hall meetings, Sheka was an expert at those. Even morning meetings, having student appreciations, news programs, letters that are sent home to show that we know why we're here and we respect them for it.
Definitely. And just to add on to that, Josh also does great videos where he's recording his students and hearing those students' voices, showing those to the teachers to say what they're appreciative about, keeps the teachers and your staff in school connected to their why. So that is excellent, Tammy. The second part under excellence is that making sure when you're cultivating that excellence and keeping people connected to their why, this helps them to understand why expectations must be high for students, because students, we need to believe in our students. So we have to have high expectations, and that helps cultivate that culture of excellence at your school.
Yes, and when we go on into the A, which is for accountability, we know that accountability has become this really bad word. It sounds wretched, and people don't want to hear you talk about holding people accountable. And there are reasons for that we'll have to spend another time and space to talk about, because it's so much that goes into that. But just making sure that teachers know that we understand standardized testing has given accountability this bad rap, and it makes us look bad, and it like sounds so dirty. But we also have to understand that the other thing that makes teachers uncomfortable when we start talking about accountability sometimes is the way we use it, because people start to use accountability as a way to get you. And that's not what this game should be about. Accountability actually goes way beyond any kind of test score. Accountability is about making sure that we're doing right by children. If we're doing what we are supposed to do for the kids, that means that we're getting them ready for the next step, whatever that is for them. We're preparing them adequately for what comes next for them. And we are supposed to be accountable to ourselves, to each other, to our schools. And teachers, we need to make sure that teachers understand that's the reason that accountability is so important. We're not playing a game of I got you. And if you do get somebody, there's a plan for that. Like, we're here to help you to be better. That's why we coach, and that's why we do the things that we do. But accountability is something that's really important. And Sheka has a really good point when she talks about accountability that I think you should share that with them.
Well, one positive thing about accountability, I model it with my routines that I post every morning for working out. So I have my own accountability team, and they help hold me accountable, because when I don't post my workouts about, I've gotten so many steps in, people start inboxing me and texting me, "Are you okay?" So that accountability helps. And when you build that space, for accountability at your school, like Tammy and I are one another's trust mates, and our each other as accountability partners in education, but you should also build that space to allow teachers to be able to have a trust mate or an accountability partner at school, because that builds collaboration and it helps to show them that we're not competing. If we all are in this together, so everybody wins, so that the children can win. So our next point falls under the L for literacy and numeracy in our acronym. And we do have to teach the standards like Principal Hurt talked about this morning. And we have to pick out priority standards. So we have to be strategic. We have to work smarter, not harder. One of my gripes that I used to have with some of the upper level people, when you say things like, well, we're going to pick out priority standards, but it's the law that we have to teach all of the standards. Those two things don't go together. So are we going to teach priority standards, or are you going to, in the next breath, say, oh, but it's the law to teach all the standards? We got to make up our minds what we're doing. So priority standards is that way to work smarter and not harder and be strategic.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we need to also do when we are making sure we're looking at making our kids better, academically better, because this is the part of the acronym where the meat really is for the academics in the school. Yes, we have to make sure that the kids are being taught at high levels and that they are receiving standards-based instruction. We also have to be able to rely on whomever is available. I pull groups.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody in the school is above helping when kids need assistance. I don't mind doing an intervention group, and you can ask anybody in the school. I will work with students because that's a part of helping us for that we get the kids where they need to be. And this is something that Sheka and I were just talking about when we were planning for this morning. We know that in Pete's parody, when he was going through and he was talking about creating all these fancy lesson plans, and it's just for
admin
administrators. That does happen in some cases because you have to fill out 20 pages of lesson plans. And neither of us are subscribers of that. However, we want to be clear that we both believe that a plan is important.
Definitely.
A lesson plan to guide what you're doing with students. It's just like a roadmap for knowing where you're going. You cannot go into a class, and Principal said that this morning. You cannot fly by the seat of your pants. You don't wing it and be a good teacher. You cannot be successful unless you're adequately prepared.
Well, that is our time. We're going to be like Principal Hurt. We got to do another part to this. And since we'll be in Charleston together, we're hoping that depending on the times of our presentations, Tammy and I are going to be presenting about restorative practices by fire. And Principal Hurt's going to be presenting at SCASB down in Charleston. So maybe we can bring our platforms together, but it depends on the time. So please join us next on Principal Kafele's page. He has a dynamic guest that we're excited to see, and also join in on Sunday with Unlock the Middle with Josh and Dean. Thank you all. We appreciate you all every Saturday.
Absolutely, guys. Have a good week, rest of your weekend.
Thank you.